your arm is going to be moving all over the place as you observe.
Yep.
We are just waiting for our next game to get prepared here as the teams sort things out, get their bans out of the way. So we're just hanging out, talking about things. As we mentioned before, tonight's tournament is being played on the live server with those white main changes, those Kel'Thuzad changes, those Deckard Cain changes. And, I mean, looking at that last game, I would still say Deckard Cain is pretty strong, Murda. What do you think?
I have been calling him the auto-win hero, as every time he's played, you have a huge chance of winning the game. And, I mean, you saw Bernie Burn. He's able to set up. They got all the way down to the core and found a way to get it done. But really the biggest play was on that boss pit. You saw Doki Doki. They're able to collect it, but they found themselves trapped in up against a Riptire, a Purification Salvo, and a Butcher.
And a Butcher to boot.
Yeah, not where you want to be. They were all trapped there in the pit, and it ended up costing them 2 keeps. Eventually, the third went down. And at that point, it's so hard to come back on Tomb of the Spider Queen. You might as well just let the minions defeat your core.
Yeah, absolutely. And that always feels bad, especially that this is the last cup. Looking at the drafts, though, from FWC entirely in that last series, I'm actually not too familiar with the drafting style of Necrodancers, given that you've cast into them. Do you think that FWC drafting things like the double stealth with that out-of-nowhere Butcher, with the very gutsy white man Kel'Thuzad, do you think that at all has hope to throw off the powerhouse that is Necrodancers?
Truthfully, I think Necrodancers has got this. I've been so impressed with them throughout this season. I got to cast them twice in a third-place matchup, and I would be very surprised if they're not able to pull this off here tonight. But, you know, it depends. I thought FWC looked very solid set number 1, rather, up against Doki Doki, but they're facing a new breed here in Necrodancer.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes that's just the way the bracket falls. That first round, pretty straightforward, but second round, especially this late into Open Division, where a lot of the teams in the lower part of the standings have decided not to continue to participate, you know, leaves a lot of interesting matchups. And you end up facing against these powerhouses way earlier on in the bracket rather than later and maybe getting a little bit more footing. So it's going to see how FWC Esports rides this high of winning that series 2-1 and seeing how they translate that. And they're going to a map that we've already seen them play tonight and that they ended up winning in the long run. Game number 1, we are going to Towers of Doom yet again, ladies and gentlemen.
Another map that is a lot of fun to cast. I think all the maps we've had tonight are exactly what these teams want to play. We haven't seen anything ridiculous. Obviously, no Braxis holdout. But Towers of Doom is a staple now. And I think the reason being because you're never out of it. And teams hate feeling like they're out of games and have no way to climb back in. So we'll see here as we're going to be going to Towers of Doom. And game number 1 earlier with FWC, that was their best of the 3 games, I believe, out of that set. So can they make it happen once again here on Towers of Doom?
Yeah, and I mean, you never want to pull out the same trick twice, so I doubt we'll see the Zeratul Valera, but I wouldn't be surprised if they decided to let one through at the very least. We kept seeing that Zeratul ban against them from Doki Doki Hots Club in that last match, so that is important information for Necrodancers going forward. However, the roster of Necrodancers, you got Faye, you got Ezreal, you got Physicals, you have so many people. Physicals being one of my teammates, by the way, in the March of the Violet Crusade. Wonderful individual. We're going to have to see what they do with that knowledge. Also good to know, FWC Esports banning out that Dragonshire, and Necrodancers, unfortunately, banning out Braxis holdout here, Murda.
Yeah, so we won't see Braxis, but we didn't see it in the first set either, and it was available. I wasn't expecting it. Again, no one wants to see that map. Delete it. Delete it. Go ahead and delete it. There's the Zeratul ban, so not letting it through. Did their homework tonight are the Necrodancers.
Absolutely. Maybe catching a peep on that game. We did see Faye in chat. Faye, thank you for hanging out before your set. We love to see players hanging out there in Twitch chat, making sure everyone's having a great time. And I hope this match ends up being a great time for everyone. Is going to be quite explosive. We're going to have the Garrosh band coming out from FWC Esports. So pick number 1 for Necrodancers. What could it possibly be?
This band, probably Dahaka, maybe? They want to keep the Urel on board. It still hasn't been banned here, but we've seen FWC banning it out all night. Definitely looking different in terms of what these bans are looking like compared to game number 1. It's going to be the Genji instead, which is another fine option here to ban out. Yeah, absolutely. Removing one of those options for dive, and another option, I suppose, for counter dive coming out with that Maev ban, which we saw give FWC a really hard time in a couple of those games in the last series, so not surprised by that ban whatsoever. First pick, Urel is available. So is that Dahaka, which I think gets a ton of value. This is definitely one of his best maps. The Blaze is still available. So a lot of options at the solo lane. Maybe not a priority right now for these teams. Do they want to look into something else? It's going to be a Diablo. Hopefully changes his skin, because I believe that one is banned, right? Absolutely, it is. But the Instalock Abathur Deckard came coming out from FWC Esports, not taking any time at all, no hesitation. That's what I like to see from a second round pick here. Abathur, fun map for him, but you really live or die on the cooldown of your ultimate evolution. Will they be able to find value with it? And they need to find a strong target to pair with it. We did see where will we end up this time? Wow. Murda, we got ourselves a Lost Vikings game here on Towers of Doom. Let's go. Let's go indeed. Let's go 3 times, actually. Olaf, Balog, and Eric will be joining. Okay, so when you have a player that can play the Lost Vikings, it's a lot of fun. We've seen this hero, or set of heroes, I guess, be played on this map in the past. I believe last season during BlizzCon, Roll20 pulled it out, and it ended up losing, throwing a game there at the end up against Ballistics with the Lost Vikings. Was a huge attempt for them to pick up a win up against that Korean powerhouse. So, I mean, it's a map that you see the Lost Vikings on. Will it be the answer, is the question for Necrodancer. Yeah, I mean, we talked about Necrodancer and their success so far in Open Division this phase, and so I suppose they are willing to do something a bit out of the ordinary and pull out those Lost Vikings, especially against that Abathur. You have 2 characters that are very untraditional soakers. You have Abathur, who kind of has to creep in the shadow, and honestly, the split of the Vikings is going to make that Abathur not go so far out of his comfort zone, into those lanes, as we often see some do when those shrines are active. So it's kind of countering that a little bit. It's, as you mentioned, can Necrodancers pull it off? And given their success so far, I think they wouldn't have drafted it, especially this early, if they're not comfortable on it. And the beauty of it is they banned out the Zeratul and the Genji. Now they're going to take a Thrall and a Jaina. So a lot of heroes that are pretty good at destroying the Vikings are not really options here. Currently, the only threat is Junkrat. This final pick has to be something that can swipe away some of these Nordic adventurers, because they will... Do we see a Butcher? Do we see a Butcher reprise? Meat stacks on Vikings. It's a thought, but is that enough to be your Abathur clone target? Oh, it is! Oh my god. Cat, how'd you call that? Nice. Man, right. Man. Initially I was thinking maybe we see a Li Ming to get the easy resets on those Vikings. And then I remembered, they literally just play Butcher. They ain't afraid. They have no fear. So yeah, they'll do this again with that Junkrat to make sure there's a little bit of zoning. We're not going to have the peel with Warlord's Challenge this time around, but we do have a very tanky Muradin in that place. So with that Stormbolt, perhaps being able to protect that Butcher a little bit more than we saw, because we saw how hard it was for Flyas Raven last time around to get those meat stacks. So perhaps the damage coming out, the stuns from Thrall, the follow-up damage from Jaina might be enough to prevent that yet again. I am worried this time. Flyest Raven, he's got to be able to survive against a lot of this like slow potential. Obviously, the Jaina getting stuck inside a silence from Stukov could be pretty devastating. And then Huff Money, he's so deadly on the tanks that he plays. Will he be able to control Flyest Raven enough, keep him locked in to some of his CC chains that he can put out? We'll see. Game number 1, CatPeach, take it away.
Oh man, this is going to be so interesting. In the blue on the left, we are going to have Necrodancers. We're going to have Physicals on Thrall, the Attacker on Stukov, Faye rocking the Lost Vikings, Ezreal on Jaina, and Huff Money on Diablo.
And over on the right-hand side, we have FWC Esports. Krovan gonna resume his role on Junkrat McNulty on the Muradin. Bernie Byrne once again on Deckard Cain. Axon on the Slug with the spooky skeleton as well. And rounding it out for the second time this evening, you have the pleasure of seeing the Butcher, played by Flyest Raven.
And this is going to be such an interesting map choice, and I'm so excited to see Flyest Raven just hunt down those little Vikings as best he can, because theoretically that should be pretty easy stacking. But as we talked about in draft, there's a lot that can punish that Butcher for going in far too deep rather. The other thing with Butcher is making space for that Abathur to get that mid lane soak, as we talked about. A beautiful lurking arm coming out from the attacker early on. Lots of flashes and lights, not a lot of death just yet, but it will come soon as the Flyest Raven looking for a Viking to hunt. It has set eyes on one, and can they get it?
Oh!
With the habit!
That literally said 1 health. I thought it was about to get away with 1 health, but
the oh man, yeah, the Abathur hat coming in clutch.
Yeah, and that's actually a thing to talk about is Abathur will be able to provide that extra bit of healing that Butcher needs, especially when Deckard Cain is nowhere nearby, and Butcher can just, you know, charge away at these Vikings up in this top lane, making sure they're not getting that free push. And the meat will come online and potentially put them pretty high by the end of the game, as we see an invade on this bottom camp. There's a concussion mine on the point, Krovan holding it, and here comes the Butcher. Backside, looking to get on top of Thrall, but a pretty good disengage there, as they're able to walk away. Physicals uses his extra speed boost from his E talent and survives. Fantastic play in there in the escape.
And two things there. The Frostwolf coming out in a perfect line hitting 4. The other thing is I'm pretty sure Huff Money actually saved Flyest Raven there with that flip earlier. I thought that Butcher was in way too deep, and going in now onto this Thrall. Physicals trying to escape the Lurking Iron hat coming out, but it is not enough, and Thrall is going to fall. Huff Money going to follow as well in a 2-for-0 kill here. However, FWC Esports still lacking a little bit in the experience department. Abathur, again, not being able to get that prominent soak compared to these Vikings, who don't seem very lost. They seem to know exactly where they need to be in this game.
Alter phase number 1. We'll see if Butcher wants to play this aggressive, especially remembering they have that Abathur hat that will be able to be used. Now Butcher, I think, has an idea that they're up here on this siege camp, but not going to make it in time. We'll see if he wants to charge on Balog or Eric, as Eric's walking very close.
Yeah,
and it's going to come out.
Close. The mine, the charge, the hats, the kill. Coming in for FWC Esports. Playing out exactly so far as we talked about in that draft. But with these shrines, it looks like there's going to be a trade on top, while most of the poke going on here on bottom. The attacker trying to get the channel, but the scroll ceiling coming out from Bernie Byrne will stall this a little bit longer.
Yeah, great silence spot there by Stukov. Gonna make sure that Muradin cannot dwarf toss back out. Big pickup for Necrodancers, their first kill of the game. As Vikings were able to take 1 up top. Butcher find another kill in the mid with that Abathur hat, but this bottom side Alter will finally be channeled by Necrodancers as they take a 4-shot lead here on Towers of Doom.
Absolutely. Faye just poking away at Flyest Raven there in mid, doing whatever damage they possibly can get in here. Axon moving up to that gate. There is not the actual gate there, so going to have to watch that positioning, making sure that those Vikings don't push too hard into that top lane, leaving them susceptible to a gank of some kind. Both teams rotating, trying to clear out this bottom lane, trying to prepare just for the late game. Zappers gotten on the side of Necrodancers should be cleaned up fairly easily on the side of FWC, and level 7's coming in for everybody here, and this is going to be potentially an interesting fight that both these teams are posturing for.
Yeah, keep an eye. We do see the mule coming out from Abathur, so he's able to keep some of these structures alive, especially this bottom lane, which is so important to them. Butcher is sitting at 106 stacks on his meat. We'll keep an eye on those stacks as Flyest Raven is waiting for Faye to bring Olaf just a little bit further out in this lane. But being disciplined right now are the Lost Vikings, making sure Butcher's not getting any freedom. No meat today. No discount on the steaks.
Ain't no meat special here, but both shrines, or two shrines rather, spawning here in top. I expect another trade like we saw initially for these top two in that last altar phase as well, given that neither team necessarily has an advantage. So unless Necrodancers is looking for a fight, which they're posturing as if they might be trying to look for a pick, I would assume a very safe trade, maybe some poke coming out from the Abathur with those mines coming out over the battleground. But for now, even trade on both sides, not too much movement going on there. And really now, the race is to 10. There's a slight experience lead for Necrodancers. Can they get there before FWC?
I mean, Vikings taking a peek over. I want to look at the XP right now for the, oh wow, as you do see Mr. Eric falling. But XP right now for the Vikings sitting at 8,900, almost 9,000 XP. Butcher's half that, so Vikings doing a fantastic job soaking. Abathur not getting nearly the value. Olaf might fall here, which would put Butcher very close, but Stukov appearing at the right moment can keep him alive. And now Flyest Raven in trouble inside of Silence, inside of Blizzard, gonna charge forward, but that Abathur hat is not gonna save him. Butcher down. Meat stacks have been lowered. Big pickup.
The chase coming out from Flyest Raven, trying to get that kill onto, I believe that was Balog, ends up running him right into Stukov Jaina, ends up losing those meat stacks, and gives level 10 much faster to the enemy team than for their team. We are going to see Water Elemental coming out for Jaina here. We've been seeing Ring of Frost for the rest of the evening, but potential great follow-up to that Earthquake as well, along with this Lightning Breath, pushing McNulty back away from this engagement. The Abathur hat does come out to protect them a little bit more. We finally have stacks achieved for Huff Money, so that is a tanky Diablo that FWC Esports is going to have to chunk through.
Yeah, and a lot of slow. You see the Water Elemental, the Lightning Breath, the Earthquake as well. So many ways to slow down these members as Butcher walking in, gonna drop that Lamb to slaughter, but not gonna find any damage, and he's gonna have to back up, and now the big damage starting to come out. This Water Elemental keeping everyone low. Huff Money also having the retreat, but I don't think they're gonna find a kill. Axon with that clone is gonna fall, but neither side, either team has lost a member until Thrall. Now surrounded, Physical's in trouble, but he's able to back up. Stukov doing a tremendous job. Now Huff Money going for a piece. Inside the Silence is Murda. 700 health. Can they lock him down? No. Literally no one falling in the fight, but so much damage done on both sides.
So much damage done, so much healing coming out from both teams as well, with that Pushful coming out from Stukov, with the potions constantly being popped out by Deckard Cain, and the self-healing, of course, as well coming out from Butcher. But man, yeah, that fight went on for an extended period of time. Almost was able to hold off that channel a little bit longer, but for not, and that puts FWC Esports at a bit of a disadvantage here in terms of core shots.
Yeah, Mercenary Lord value there up top with Balog. You saw him rip through those towers. Eric's gonna fall to Butcher, so Butcher still working his way up to 200. A little bit faster this game than the last for Flyest Raven trying to get these stacks. But right now, finding himself and FWC Esports, they're behind 12 shots on the core damage right now. They need to get this Butcher online, and with the way Vikings have been soaking Faye, getting them that full level lead, even though they're down in kills in the game, FWC, they need to start catching up because Alter's spawning again, and they're already down in this one.
Yeah, and that's always a hard position to come back from, as we saw in the last game too. Definitely not impossible. Fly's Raven going way too deep, trying to get a kill onto Eric there. It ends up losing those meat stacks yet again. That was a really hasty play coming out from Fly's Raven. I'm gonna say far too deep, far too eager to finish that quest, and it ends up sending them back at the end of the day.
And Heroics are still here, so Alter will be channeled basically for free. And now a charge on Murda. Is the silence here? Not going to get there in time from Stukov. So dwarf tossing out was McNulty. He's able to back up, popping Avatar and the well tap as well. The Pumpkin Tappers are here. Mercenary Lord once again on top as all three charge in. And that fort went all the way down to about 20% health. Mule's out to try to recover some of that. But this Mercenary Lord from the Vikings is destructive, CatPeach.
Absolutely. Level 14 and still no 13 for FWC. They is commanding the way that this experience soak is going in this game for Necrodancers, while the rest of the team can simply focus on trying to find those picks and trying to take members out, much like they're trying to do on Bernie Burn here, and they're literally trying to burn him to death with that lightning breath. Barely makes it out, able to sustain with their own potions for the time being, but now the focus going onto McNulty, trying to get out of there. The clone does come out. Axon now trying to get in a couple storm bolts to stall. Fly's Raven now positioning, hopefully for a gank. Huff Money ends up launching in, but Shadow charges back to the team. And that was a lot of heroics popped for not too much happening, Murda.
Yeah, they have to live or die on that ultimate evolution. And without Butcher there, they really didn't have much threat. It's just a Junkrat. Really not enough damage to find any kills. And with Stukov, the way the attacker's been playing, it's really tough to get through these health bars. His bio kill switch is keeping everyone up at max. He's rocking that new Viper skin, which looks fly as hell. And look at this. Silence on top of Junkrat. He's able to just absolutely blast himself away. Riptire comes out now. Kroberlin's backside. Might be able to find a kill on Stukov. Attacker's low, but massive shove, making sure McNulty cannot get the job done. We do see a channel go out up top for the Vikings and one for the Butcher as well. So they're going to trade out even, but down 20 shots are the members of FWC Esports. Necrodancers looking really good.
Yeah, Necrodancers getting their opponents down to 8 core health here on Towers of Doom in game number 1. And they are not letting up. They are about to hit 16. They have a boss that can lower that even further, and they're looking to get some kills to boot. The Mule coming out, trying to save this fort. The Lightning Breath coming out as well, not able to necessarily secure a kill. But Necrodancers still able to go into this fort, take it down, convert this bell tower into their favor. However, McNulty trying to go in onto Ezreal on that Jaina, but she's able to get out for the time being. And Fly's Raven again focusing down on Faye. Charge coming in as well. The beautiful land to the slaughter. The ultimate evolution clone ends up falling. Physicals looking in a rough position, but they don't have the follow-up damage. Butcher going in with the charge, but still can't convert the kill and make that 2 down for FWC Esports, and this is turning against them quickly.
And Bernie Burn's stuck. Diablo's about to find him. Let's see if he gets there and charges. Yes, he does. Now stuck here. Body block. The flip. Maybe ill-advised, flipping Bernie Burn to safety there. A bit of a misplay by Huff Money. But they do end up finding the other kills. They did a lot in terms of making sure they have full control. Only 8 shots are still available on the core of FWC Esports. So this bottom altar and quite possibly a boss or some pumpkin sappers that are pushing this lane are all that they need to win this first map of this set.
There are so many win conditions on the map for Necrodancers right now, and FWC Esports just trying to think of which they can possibly actually defend against. Faye getting the channel on that bottom shrine, launching 4 into the core. These 3 zappers are right on the edge of being locked in the scroll seal and gumming out, trying to lay on more damage. All eyes are getting these zappers out. Most of them are cleared. The Earthquake coming out from physicals now. Stay a while and listen to buy a little bit of time. Huff when he gets launched into the wall. Takes a lot of damage from that, but Butcher again ends up being the focus here. here. Drunkrat falls right afterwards, and so close to their own structures. This is starting to fall apart for FWC Esports.
And up top, Vikings just grabbed that fort. Pumpkin Sapper is still there. It's just one. And Abathur might fall. Accent so low. Faye with the Baylog. One more. Gets it. Pumpkin Sapper still there. That's going to potentially cross the line unless Decker Kane makes the big sprint up there. But now it's all but checkmate on the map. More Pumpkin Sappers for bottom. They can make their way up to the boss as well. That one Pumpkin Sapper did cross the line, as we do see Necrodancers making their move to the Headless Horse.
And if FWC Esports wants to do anything, they have to go into this boss right now, down a member to boot. They don't have to worry about the Vikings gathering there. McNulty going in, trying to peep this out. They're going to have to launch onto that real quick. The Dwarf Toss coming out with the shove to remove them, and that is the final 4 shots coming in for Necrodancers, taking game number 1 here on Towers of Doom.
They looked good there. 28-0, about a 15-minute game for Necrodancers, showing why they are one of the top teams here in the Open Division. Huge shout out to Faye joining this squad, playing one of the most difficult heroes in the game to play at this sort of level, and finding 31K experience for her team, giving them that 3-level lead that led them to victory. Outstanding Vikings work there by Faye.
Yeah, absolutely. 100 and almost 5,000 siege damage coming out from those lost Vikings. Abathur not necessarily excelling in that role, instead focusing on staying with that Butcher, making sure Butcher is hatted, has the protection to dive in. Still a pretty low kill game, 9-3 coming out in favor of Necrodancers.